Hi, my name is Judy, and I am the girl who can never be alone, even in my bedroom. The fact is that I live in a house with walls made of glass, and therefore I have no personal space at all. Besides, I always have a feeling that someone is constantly spying on me. Previously, my parents and I lived in New York City in a very tall building. Our apartment was on the 44th floor out of 50. It took so much time for us to wait for the elevator that I could eat my breakfast while I was waiting for it or while I was going down inside it. Actually, I liked riding up and down inside the elevator and watching the numbers running on its panel, but it seemed that my parents didn't like this waste of time at all. Besides, they had an increasingly smaller love for life in a big city. I mean, they needed space to create. Oh, yes, I forgot to say that my parents were designers. One day, when I was returning home from school, I saw a large truck near our house. The movers were putting boxes into it. There were a lot of designer items in the truck, which looked a lot like ours. I was surprised to realize that someone also had such things at their house. When I opened the door of my apartment, I saw more sturdy men who were folding, packing, and carrying away our belongings. A minute later, I found my parents. They looked at me, seeing the question in my eyes, and told me that we were moving immediately and that I would like our new home. I protested because all my friends, my school, and my music teacher were in this city. But an hour later, I was in the back seat of our car looking out the rear window and saying goodbye to my calm life. In a couple of hours, we were in a neighboring state. Here, in a small town, everything was different from New York. I saw well-tended lawns and large houses with a playground in front of the house. While I was looking at other people's houses, the car finally stopped near our new home. I opened the door and my jaw dropped to the floor. All the walls of our house were made of glass. I went inside and looked out into the street. I could see everything that was happening there, which meant that people could see me too. I started to yell that I did not like the house and that the very idea of such a house was stupid. But my parents liked the house. Besides, they told me that our apartment had already been sold and they invested the money in this house. So I had no choice at all and had to accept my new life. I went up to my room. My previous bedroom in the city was a secure haven full of comfort and safety. Everything was different here. Moreover, I didn't even have curtains in my new bedroom. I could see everyone who walked by our new fashion house. After our trip, I decided to go to the bathroom, and thank goodness at least here the walls were not transparent. After my shower, I put on a huge bathrobe, ran to my bedroom for clothes, and returned to the bathroom so that no one could see me. It was way more comfortable for me that way. In the evening, I was preparing for lessons at my new school. I did not turn on the light in the bedroom and used only a very small table lamp so that no one could see me. I was expecting a stranger to wave his hand at me any moment, but no one showed up in the street. The next morning, I went to school. The school was quite ordinary, and despite the fact that I was a new girl at the school, I felt much more comfortable there than at home, probably because the school walls were made of bricks. I made friends with my new classmates quickly. However, they started talking about a glass house. One of them, Steve, said that someone moved in there yesterday. He invited me and the other classmates to take a look at the strange family who dared to buy it. I had to lie that I couldn't join them because I had to meet my parents. And I really had to run to my house very fast because my classmates decided to go there and look at it right after school. I managed to get into the house earlier and ran to my bedroom. I stared at the wall, waiting for my classmates. When I saw them approaching my house, I jumped over the bed and hid there. I was sitting there waiting for them to leave. A couple of minutes passed, and I thought they were already bored to just stand there in front of my house, so I stuck my head out to check. But that was a big mistake. I saw Steve, who was pointing his hand at me and laughing. Then everyone else looked at me and started laughing too. It was so embarrassing. Why did I stick my head out? From now on, they would come here every day and look at me like a museum piece or a fish in an aquarium. In the evening, I told my parents that I wanted to move out of this house because I felt very uncomfortable here. My parents could not understand what was wrong with the house. But for all my complaints, I was told that they had already spent too much money on this house and could not afford to move to another place. And though I would not want it, the next day I still had to go to school. Steve and everyone else sat together. I tried to pass by them unnoticed, but I failed. Steve said that I should have gone with them yesterday because that strange house was really worth seeing. I felt a lot better after his words. It seemed that they didn't actually notice me yesterday. In the evening of the same day, I went to take a shower as usual. The day was long and I was so tired that at some point I forgot about being careful. I went to my room just with my towel tied around my body. When I stretched myself, the towel suddenly slipped off of me and fell on the floor. I wanted to pick it up, but I stood there dead frozen. I saw Steve standing outside with a dog leash in his hand. Steve was looking right at me, I could swear. That was the end of everything. I wanted to melt into the ground and stay there forever, or move. Yes, perhaps moving to just another place would help. The next morning, I had to go to school, but I imagined that Steve had already blabbed about what had happened to everyone. I didn't want to be the laughingstock for my classmates, so I decided to tell my parents that I wasn't feeling well. It worked. I decided to spend this day the best way possible. Since I had to live here, I had to take care of my own comfort, so I went to the store. I bought all the posters in the store. At first, I was trying to choose the best ones, but then I realized that it would take a very long time, so I just took everything I could find on the shelves. Even the salespeople were surprised when I pulled up a cart filled with posters. It took the cashier quite a bit of time to check out and pack everything up. A huge, furious line gathered behind me, but it was worth it. Coming home, I began to implement my brilliant plan of restoration of comfort and security in my life. In the evening, my parents decided to check how I was feeling and looked into my room. When they entered, they were very shocked. I lay on the bed listening to music and shaking my head to the rhythm. But most importantly, all my glass walls were hung with posters so that not a single ray of the sun could get into my room. To put it mildly, my parents were very surprised because of that. Having calmed down, they decided to ask why I did it. Plucking up my courage, I told them that in the new house I felt like an animal in a zoo. I even told them about the ridiculous incident with the towel. My parents looked at each other and started laughing. It made me very angry, but holding back my emotions, I still asked what was so funny. My parents replied that they probably should have told me sooner, but they thought it was obvious. The glass used for the house had a slight blue tint and a special coating. People in the street could not see what was happening inside the house, but we could see everything happening outside. It turned out that I was so worried about my comfort that I did not realize or notice this feature. Now I even like to watch my neighbors. I see when they visit each other. Besides, it turned out that Steve lived not far from me and that he did not clean up after his dog. I think I will learn a lot more. How would you feel living in a house with transparent walls? Write your answers in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.